So looking at the bacteria in the oral cavity, soon after a baby is born, the oral cavity is invaded with aerobes and obligate anaerobes. When the first teeth erupt then, the anaerobes become dominant. As the teeth grow, streptococci species attach to the enamel surfaces and also found inside the cheek and on the gum surfaces. And they also colonize the saliva. And these streptococci produce a glycocalyx, if you can remember that from the first lecture about bacterial structure. The glycocalyx, if you remember, means sugar cup. So they produce this glycocalyx and other adherence factors, and these enable them to attach to oral surfaces. And it's the presence of these bacteria which contribute to the formation of dental caries, which is tooth decay, and periodontal disease. Then looking at the respiratory tract, it's divided into the upper and lower tract. And the upper respiratory tract is known to be colonized by a diverse group of microbes. The oropharynx is the most diverse, with several different species of bacteria. The upper respiratory tract is also home to a robust diversity of pathogenic organisms, but healthy people can host these without becoming ill. And although the lower respiratory tract has always been thought to be sterile, there is new research going on in this area at the moment, as there may be some transient bacteria that are introduced from the oropharynx. But this stay is only temporary, as they are expelled and replaced by new transient microbes. So a kind of revolving door system. So moving on to the gastrointestinal or GI tract, this is a really important region of microflora. So the stomach is very acidic, and the stomach acid will kill most microbes that are ingested through food and drink. So as a result, as you'd expect, the stomach contains very few bacteria. Bacteria that are present include streptococci, staphylococci, and lactobacilli. Some microbes can survive the stomach if they pass quickly through it, or if they are resistant to gastric pH. And in some people, a bacterium called H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, is present in the stomach. And in most of these people, this doesn't cause any problems. But in a small percentage of people with this bacteria causes inflammation and stomach ulcers. So H. pylori infections can be diagnosed in a few different ways, so by blood, breath, or stool test. And if you have an ulcer and you test positive for H. pylori, then you can be treated with triple therapy. So that's two different antibiotics, which eradicate the bacteria, and an acid suppressant to help heal the ulcer. And this triple therapy should eradicate the bacteria. So the small intestine is divided into three regions: the duodenum, the duodenum, and the ileum. And the duodenum contains few microbes due to the stomach acid and the bile and pancreatic secretions. Then in the duodenum, you can find the lactobacilli and streptococci. And as you travel towards the bottom of the ileum, the microflora starts to become more like the colon microflora, and you have the establishment of anaerobic gram-negative bacteria and enterobacteria. And then when we get to the large intestine or the colon, this is the most densely packed microbial ecosystem on Earth, with over 500 species present. And the strict anaerobic conditions and bacterial waste products here inhibit the growth of other species. Okay, so next we'll look at the microflora in the urogenital tract. So the type of bacteria in the vagina depends on age, pH, and hormone levels. So Lactobacillus species predominate in female infants in the first month. Okay, and these bacteria ferment glycogen produced by the vaginal epithelium, producing lactic acid, which accounts for the slightly acidic pH. Then glycogen secretion ceases from after first month of age to puberty, and during this time pH rises again to around 7, and diphtheroid, streptococci and E. coli are the predominant bacteria then in the vagina. Then at puberty, the glycogen secretion resumes, the pH drops again, becoming more acidic, and women acquire more adult flora, so species such as Staphylococci, Streptococci, and Corynebacteria predominate. Then, after menopause in women, the pH again rises, less glycogen is secreted, and the flora returns to that found in prepubescent females. So, in terms of the upper urinary tract, this is usually free of microorganisms. But in males and females, a few common bacteria can be cultured from the lower part of the urethra. It's important to note when people are taking urine samples for culture or examination, it's important for the urine to be taken midstream. Otherwise, the normal flora in the urethra can interfere with the results. So you can see from the diagram how the bladder is linked to the urethras and the kidneys. So you can see how easily a bladder infection could spread to a kidney infection and become a lot more serious. Therefore, it's highly important to treat any infection of the urinary tract before it gets as far as the kidneys. So even a simple bladder infection such as cystitis can become quite serious if left untreated. So if we talk more about the way infection can occur, so infection is the intimate way in which microbes cause disease. There are a number of steps the pathogen needs to take to cause an infectious disease. So it needs to enter the host, it needs to multiply on or inside the host tissue, it needs to resist the host defense system, so resist the immune system, and then damage the host. So there are different types of infections. So you've got acute infections, which are short duration and are severe, and chronic is long duration. Fulminating occurs suddenly and severely, for example, meningitis. Then you have localized infections, which are restricted to a certain area of the body, for example, urinary infection. Then you've got generalized infection, which affects all parts of the body, and we'll talk about this kind of infection later with typhoid fever. And then you have the primary infection, which is the initial localized infection, may be asymptomatic. And then the secondary infection, which is established after the primary infection, such as pneumonia. Also important to note that some infections do not cause infectious diseases. For example, botulism. There's no invasion of microbes, but the disease is caused by the ingestion of the bacterial toxins. In addition, different pathogens have different routes of transmission. For example, some are transmitted in droplets which are sneezed out, then inhaled by other people. For example, respiratory viruses such as flu, colds. And then another route, for example, is the oral route, so ingestion of infected food, for example, salmonella food poison. So we'll now look at specific examples of clinically significant bacterial diseases. The first disease we'll talk about is diphtheria, and this is a serious childhood disease which is life-threatening. So diphtheria is caused by the gram-positive Corynebacterium diphtheriae, and the bacteria can infect the skin, nose, throat, or tonsils. Symptoms include a thick grey-white coating at the back of the throat, high temperatures, sore throat, swollen glands in the neck, and difficulty breathing and swallowing. The bacteria produce a toxin which kills cells by interrupting protein synthesis, and it acts on the heart to cause myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle, and acts on the nervous system to cause neuropathy and paralysis. The severity of the infection is directly related to the degree of toxin production. So if it affects the skin, it can cause pus-filled blisters or large ulcers surrounded by red and sore skin. The bacteria is highly contagious and is spread through coughing and sneezing or through close contact with someone who's infected. You can also get it by sharing items such as cups or cutlery with someone who's infected. And the treatment for diphtheria is with a specific antitoxin, as well as antibiotic treatment, for example, erythromycin. Intensive care support may also be required. Luckily, diphtheria can be prevented by vaccination, and in the UK it's part of the routine childhood vaccination programme. Immunity is long-lasting, but boosters for adults at extra risk may be needed.